Well, hello. We are very excited to continue our webinar series on manufacturing and logistics. And so she would not be able to do this without our generous partners from Ohio College Tech Prep and our community partners of Dayton Regional Manufacturing Association and Dayton Logistics Association. Today, we are here to talk with Crystal Corbin. She will be sharing a little bit about what she does as an executive director for the economic development and transportation. With that, I would love to introduce you to Crystal and let her introduce herself to you all.
Hi, thank you for having me. Appreciate it, the opportunity. I'm Crystal Corbin. I am the executive director of the Montgomery County Transportation Improvement District. I've actually been the executive director since January of this year. However, I have been with the organization for a little over 10 years. So.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm really excited to hear about what you do and how it relates, what you do every day, and then how it relates to your success of your company.
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about what a TID is, or a Transportation Improvement District. In this case, Montgomery County commissioners commissioners in general in Ohio have the ability to create a transportation improvement district as part of the Ohio Revised Code. Not every county has one, but if one feels the need, there are certain benefits of creating one. In the case of Montgomery County, they created this one back in 2001. And the former executive director had been the only executive director of the organization up until December of 2021. So I have big shoes to fill. However, I would like to think that his mentorship along the way has really primed me for the job. You know, a little bit about a TID. It's a special purpose local government that really specializes in the financing and construction of infrastructure improvements related to economic development. And we are only engaged in a project if that local jurisdiction or several local jurisdictions involved need our help and want to engage us. Some of the benefits of having us engaged is, prime example, collaborative efforts of really bringing everyone together. If we have multiple local jurisdictions, private developers, you know, it really just depends on the circumstance, but we have the ability to really take projects and move them at an accelerated pace. We can get everyone in the room, even if they were former enemies, and really work toward how it can be a success. And that not only generates success in the county, but really in the community and region as a whole.
Yeah, I can see how that can greatly positively impact our community. Having one person bringing everybody to the table together is critical. So what is a typical day like for you?
Crazy. Nutshell. No, so this particular TID, we're the largest we've ever been. There are 4 full-time people, and we rely heavily on one another. We have a director of engineering, I have a manager of support services, I have a development specialist, and then there's myself. And a typical day is really filled with all kinds of communication on every single level, whether it's internal, external. We're constantly talking to our partners, whether that's in person, virtual, phone calls. You know, we really try to pride ourselves on keeping those relationships going. And in our days, we may have a calendar full of stuff in it, in our calendars, maybe blank. But every day is different. We don't sit in front of the computer all the time. I like to joke around and say when I'm able to chain myself to the desk, it's a blessing, because that means I'm finally getting some things done. But you know, if we're not constantly talking, if we're not out there speaking to, the municipalities and townships in this county, we're probably not doing our job right. So our typical day really just consists of a variety of things. It's probably why I have been with this organization for so long. Every day is something new, always keeps us on our toes. There's always a fire to put out or a problem to solve, or new drives and initiatives to make things happen. So it's pretty exciting.
It does sound like a fun job to have. Never boring, something new. Every day you get to learn something new.
Definitely.
So I know you already touched a little bit on this. So how long have you been working with this company or overall in the industry?
So the organization, really close to 11 years, I would say. The industry as a whole, I'd say the majority of my career has been in the public sector. I did spend a little bit of time in the private sector, but industries such as the legislative work. When I first graduated college, I worked at the Ohio State Legislature for a state representative. Private side, I have worked for several different companies in different capacities, but I would say in the political realm and in the construction realm, I've probably spent the longest time in.
Okay, great. Thank you. And what is the one thing you love most about your job?
I'm a people person, so I really love learning all of the personalities that come together to make things happen in their individual jobs and in their own companies and organizations. Whether it's challenging personalities or the pleasant ones. I think that when you're working with someone in that professional capacity, it's always interesting. It's interesting to learn what they do, how they got there. That's one of the things I think I love the most, is just seeing what people are capable of doing.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So how many hours do you spend each day in the meeting or working in groups?
On average, I would say 5 to 6 hours a day.
Good thing you're a people person, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then what is the biggest challenge with your job?
Also dealing with personalities of people, which again, to me is one of the things I appreciate about it. But I would really comment to those individuals in certain positions. The biggest challenge really is having everyone realize what the objective is of a project and how to drive it, along with how it's going to get paid for. A lot of times municipalities will engage us, or townships will engage us to, hey, we've got this idea on paper. We have no idea where to start. We don't know how much it will cost. We don't know how much we can afford or what kind of grants or funding we can get to make something happen. And that's really the one of the biggest challenges in respect to bringing projects forward, is wading through all of those details.
Okay, great. And what is your work environment? I know you said you visit people. Is it mainly Zoom nowadays, or do you still meet people in person?
We do a little both. Typically, it depends on their preference and who we're meeting with. If it's a more serious topic of conversation, I would always prefer to do things in person. I think it's more professional and personable in that way. Obviously, the pandemic has been good and bad. It's allowed us the liberties of doing things in virtual, but there's also been a negative effect of that as well, which you don't have that up close and personal, the personal serious talks. But work environment goes, we typically travel to other offices. It just makes it easier. Again, we work as sort of an arm of staff for those that may not have a team that can really zero in on some of the initiatives that they have. And so we try to make that easy and go to where, wherever they're located. Sometimes I work in my car. That we do have a home office, but it's, we have a capability, thankfully, of working anywhere. So if I have time in between a meeting and they're fairly close together, it's easy to cozy up in a Panera and either work off my phone or my iPad, or if I have my laptop with me, we can do that too. So we have created a flexible environment for us to always be able to succeed in what we need to get done.
Yeah, I bet that's critical, because if you're traveling from one location to another, you have a lot of downtime, gap time.
Yes, absolutely.
And while we're switching to the next slide, on your personal opinion, do you feel like you can develop the same close relationships via Zoom as versus being in person?
To an extent, I think there is definitely benefit to being physically in front of someone, being able to watch their mannerisms and their body language, and really being able to look someone in the eye and have those conversations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Are you expected to be on call? Work after hours?
Yes. I try to be as flexible with that as possible. I have two very young children at home. So I try to, it's a balance. It's a balance, just like anything in life.
And I know you touched on this a little bit, but can you elaborate a little bit more about your education or your experience that actually helped you get your current position?
Sure. I attended the Ohio State University. I received my bachelor's degree in political science, and thought that I would travel the road of becoming a lobbyist and fighting for, the rights of others, and got a little bit of that exposure at the working for a state representative. Very, very valuable, cherished every moment of that job. But it was definitely not a long lasting job if you needed to, pay your bills. And, it's starting out as a legislative aide is more, I would say, rewarding. It's for those that really want to get in the door and get their feet wet in that and experience the political side of things. And so my time spent there was minimal in retrospect, but extremely impactful. So I think that really helped me experience and education wise. I've been told in the past, some of the other jobs that hired me, I helped pay my college tuition by bartending my way through college. And so a lot of employers where I may not have been completely qualified for the job had said, well, you have this on your resume, I want to hire you. And I never understood the full reason about that until I really started thinking about it. And it really just, it helps you understand people and how to deal with all kinds of situations. And you've got to be pretty driven to, I think, be successful, especially bartending on a college campus bar. You get to deal with a lot of different personalities. So it sounds silly, probably especially to younger students. But if you really evaluate that job, it helped me get a lot of other jobs.
I can't disagree with you more strong. I have the same opinion on that. Being a waitress and being in the service industry for your first job.
Yeah. Very valuable experience.
Yes, it is. When hiring a new candidate in your department, what education does a candidate need?
Well, we don't hire often. Like I said, we just brought 2 full-time people on last year. For a while, it was just 2 of us and a part-time person. And so the volume of projects and the need for the help has really become a greater factor for us in the last year and a half. And so when I went about trying to figure out who do we need to bring on, who am I looking for? Is it more in a technical role? Is it more of a grant writing role? Is it, who is that person that I'm looking for? And so I think it really just depends on what slot we need filled. It's a lot of these jobs that we have to do as a whole is everything from, financial work to engineering work. My director of engineering is an actual civil engineer. She came from the private sector and is really getting her feet wet in the public sector and juggling all kind of facets of the project and not just the technical part of it. And so when I was looking for the person before I hired her, education's great, the experience, huge plus, but I think first and foremost, they have to have the personality in order to work with such a small group of people. We always have to be on the same page. Communication skills are always a huge key to that. So, I would say personality probably first, and then we'll go into actual credentials.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you already touched on this. The skill you most value in a new employee is their personality and communication skills, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Yes. Put down the social media and texting.
Yes.
And then what career advice would you give a student considering a career in your field?
See, that's a tough one because I think there's a lot of advice that I could tout on. But a couple of things I've always lived by is I've always stayed true to who I am. I haven't tried to be someone that I'm not. If I don't know the answer, it's kind of like a fire drill for me. Like I have to know it. I want to know it. I don't want to rely on someone else to, have to teach me when probably that person just doesn't have time. So, I would just say be diligent. In this career field, it's not for the faint of heart. It's extremely fast paced, lots of fire drills, putting out fires, creating fires, and really just have that drive, that motivation to be successful and to really drive things forward. Our projects and the things that we do day to day, we would not be successful if we did not constantly keep ourselves on track and keep ourselves going. Even some of the simple things that boils down to, oh yeah, I'll get that to you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You get that to them tomorrow. We don't have time to slack around here. If we don't do something we say we're going to do, the project just doesn't go anywhere unless we move it forward. So, being diligent, constantly working on yourself, staying true to who you are, and having that motivation. Really focus on what makes you tick.
Yeah, it'll take you wherever you want to go.
Absolutely.
So when a teacher or guidance counselor speaks about economic development as a career option, what should they say to a student?
I would say, first and foremost, if they are not extremely familiar with economic development on its face, there are so many avenues out there to, Google up and look at. There's many areas of economic development that can be focused on. If you like the construction part of it, obviously you can be the physical boots on the ground. You can be running the team that's the boots on the ground. If accounting and finance interest you, that's that in and of itself is just invaluable to companies out there who, for example, in our case, sometimes projects that we have will have 5 to 6 funding resources, and they're state level, they're local level, and they all have different processes and requirements and guidelines we have to follow. And so if that interests you, there's an area for you in economic development. Politics plays a huge role in economic development. So, if I were the teacher or the guidance counselor, there's so many outlets that they can direct students to check out. And there are so many professionals just in our community as well that would be happy to talk to anybody who may or may not be familiar with it, and it may spark a lot more interest than people realize.
Yeah, thank you. And then I know you went all over the place with your career path, but is there a typical path, or is it really a little bit of knowledge throughout and you build upon it?
Yeah, I think it's how you got to where you are today. It's typical career path. The former executive director was a theater major, and he was very savvy in debate. And so that really helped him in talking to people and successful in negotiations. And, and you've heard about, my path. My director of engineering is a little bit more traditional. She worked in the private industry, the engineering firms. And when I was able to snag her up to come here, she's really, kind of taken that and then brought in her horizons. My manager of support services, she is I would say the trick of all trades. She's been in IT. She was in construction and building, and on the safety side of that, she's been in administration. So she has a lot of, she's got a mixed bag. And I really think that it kind of just comes down to what kind of person you are and how quickly you adapt and how motivated you are to advance. So in summary, there's really no typical career path, I would say. No direct anyways. I think they're all related, but
Yeah. It's where you want it to take you, right?
mm-hmm. Yes.
And then what is the typical wages in your career?
It's a great question. I would say we don't have typical wages within our organization. I think it really depends on the basis. You look at the skill set and the qualities, and then obviously the job that you're doing, and you reflect that upon what other public entities out there are kind of similar on the executive scale or the education scale. And then really private too. You have to consider private, especially these days where employment seems to be in a fragile state right now. So I think, the more competitive you can be and the more upfront you can be and realistic about those wages, the better. I know the county itself establishes, their sort of a tier system, but we like to say that we're separate from the county, although we never stray far from the mothership.
Yeah.
But we in a way act like an independent public business. So we try to consider both realms for it to make sense.
Okay, great. And last question. Is there anything else that you think students or teachers should know about this wonderful career opportunity?
I think there's so many opportunities of mentorship. I know I wouldn't be where I am today if I did not have certain people in my life who were always open to opportunities and helping those that may not be so educated on a certain topic to, if that interests you, and just reach out, lend a hand. I think it's so important, especially when we're talking about people who are just coming out of high school or people who are just coming out of college. You never really know what you're getting into until you're into it. And I think as as much exposure as one can get before getting into those positions obviously is valuable, but use the resources. And if there's a random list and you see a person who has a position, reach out to them. uh, you know ask questions, be inquisitive, have an open mind. I mean, that's,
Great advice.
yeah.
Thank you. And Crystal, I thank you so much for your time today. I know you're very busy and this has been very valuable. I know I personally learned a lot about what you do and what value you bring to our community. So thank you. And thank you to your team for everything you do for us.
Thank you. Thanks
All
for all
right.
you guys do.